who lived most of their time on the South End and only part-time. So I basically was alone all by myself all the time. So we moved to the South End. And I had the opportunity to go to a party this past Saturday on the Sandspit and interact with lots of folks who were both full-time owners as well as Airbnb operators. And so I got to hear firsthand of some of the things the gentleman was talking about. Folks said that, it's unfortunate his bedroom window is right next to where these parties were happening. And, but this was sort of an isolated incident, and that they were really actually glad to see that they were starting to get postcards as of last week with more folks registering. So it seems that the program that we started is working. And I can't remember if I was on council yet or if I was out in the audience. And I feel like because I was looking from that perspective that I was in the audience. But many short-term rental operators came to speak to, I think, you all at the time. I mean, it was one of the most crowded meetings I can remember. And with that, it ended up being I think it was a task force between them, the chamber. I know the commenter we heard from earlier was part of that. And so I think when we make our agendas, we put on our agenda, the motions that we think we'll be working to. So they think that this is what we're doing. And so I just want to caution council this evening from going further than that without engaging this group again, who were very engaged. I keep thinking of our Nothing About Us Without Us with Waselli, who are very engaged, and give them the opportunity to work towards a solution. When you think about septics, I lived there. We are in such a sensitive area on the Sandspit, and often we would meet each other out at 1 a.m. I'll be quick, I'm sorry, I'm going long. We would meet each other out at 1 a.m, turning off our septic alarms. So it is a very sensitive area. I think we can work with Kitsap Public Health District. I'm the vice chair of that. The governor appointed me on Friday to the State Health Board, and we deal with lots of rules that are associated with this, and what governs rulemaking. And something that really struck me when I thought about this, what we're talking about tonight, is both procedure, but also the Regulatory Fairness Act. It requires us to consider the impact of our rules on small businesses. And I think these are mostly small businesses, many of them women-owned. And I think that if we're going to be adding any other items to, or any other motions this evening, we should wait until we have a chance to engage with the affected communities.
Okay, Councilor Matthews, and I believe the motion is to move this to a forward meeting. We're not discussing, not going to decide tonight. Councilmember Lent and Councilmember Conway Johnson.
Thank you. And I believe that Councilmember Matthews is veiled reference to me making any changes to this motion. Well, yeah. Right. Well, I guess I have some questions about the motion, specifically in the whereas statements that have been updated. I see that the city consulted the Chamber of Commerce. They consulted the Innkeepers Forum. Were any of the neighbors within 300 feet of any of the short-term rentals consulted or invited into that conversation? And I'll just spit this out and you can answer them at the end. I also was curious if agencies like Kitsap Public Health, as Councilmember Matthews alluded to also, that there are certain public health district requirements that property owners, all property owners, are required to maintain. And while a short-term rental typically is in a primary living unit, it's also a business, and businesses go through a review cycle through the planning department that checks to make sure that the carrying capacity of their septic system equals the approved number of bedrooms in that unit. For example, I think you wanted to add, or the city wanted to add, bed and breakfast to this ordinance. And if you look in the code, bed and breakfasts of 3 or more rooms requires a conditional use permit. Let me back up. Bed and breakfasts can be owner occupied. Inns do not require an owner occupation, but they can have up to 15 people. Inns are not allowed, period, in the residential zones 0.4 through 0.014, I believe. They're just not allowed at all. And so when there's multiple short-term rentals in a small area like the Sandspit, or if you look at the map, there are many, many short-term rentals that are along the shoreline of our island. If you look at those short-term rentals, you can have clusterings of them where as a group, they act like an inn or a small hotel. And past council has actually provided guidance to limit that purposefully so that neighborhoods wouldn't be disrupted. So I am not in favor of having the B&B added to a short-term rental that might take away the conditional use requirement. I'd like to offer an amendment to this ordinance. And I'd like the amendment to reflect alignment with short-term rental use with.
Point of order. The motion is to move this to a forward meeting for discussion. There is no amendment to be amended. I mean, there's no thing to be amended. We'll be discussing it at a future date, and at that future meeting, then you could possibly amend the ordinance, but it's for future discussion.
I can't hear you.
Go on.
Sorry, I can't hear
So
you.
the motion as is presented is to move this to a forward meeting for discussion. And that's the top, and a lot of the discussions going on. I would have preferred that it would have been held at that meeting, which then we were discussing it. We're kind of jumping ahead of what this motion is actually doing, which is simply moving it to a future meeting for the kind of discussion we're having now. And so that would probably be the time to bring that up at that point.
Okay, so.
I would encourage that.
Okay, so then I will withdraw the beginning of the motion making, but continue with the idea that Kitsap Public Health District requirements are something that we should be reviewing in addition to other reviews of this ordinance. Thank you.
Councilmember Franklin Johnson, then it was Deputy Mayor, and then Councilmember Schneider. I can't remember the order.
It's me, her.
You were next, so Councilmember.
And then
Yeah.
Snyder,
Right.
Ms. Snyder. I think what I wanted to just say was that, oh, I know, God, I got it. I understood, the concerns of the public comment, and I certainly would not want to be right next door to a party every weekend. And, I guess what I'm wondering, which we can probably also talk about if we decide to move this forward, is how do we not hurt anybody, right? And how do where does the city's responsibility lie? We have a HOA where I live, and there's certain things you can and can't do. And I just wonder if it would be legally feasible for the residents to get together and say for our area, because I can't have a fence too high, I can't block anybody's view. There's things that can be done kind of internally amongst the neighborhood that could prevent a lot of these things from going on. And then, when the police is called out or whatever, if it's disturbing, there's a better leg to stand on. I just wanted to offer that up.
Councilor Scheider, and then Deputy Mayor Hightopless.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I wanted to comment on your comment about process. So I think this is the place where we have a discussion about potential changes to the what the motion says is that we would be forwarding it to a future city council business meeting for consideration of approval, which kind of presumes that we've hashed out what we like and what we don't like, such that staff could come back with the changes that we've made. So, I could withdraw the motion on the floor so that we could have a discussion and a motion about a change we might like to see in the future ordinance. So I'm hoping my colleagues will jump in, but I do think right now is the time when we're having that conversation.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, so I agree. So this has been worked on out there in the community and with staff, and now this is our chance to talk about it, and we're the policymakers. So this is our chance to say, what do we think about these changes? What do we want to do? And so the goal would be, I think, for public process is that by the time we get to the point where we're approving something, people have had a chance to sit with what the final product is. So this to me is, although it's not a study session, I mean, we can start putting things on study sessions. We could say, let's move to study sessions. We can discuss it further if we're going to be hamstrung by motions to move forward. So I agree. Somehow these sort of ordinance changes need to be able to be considered and amended by the council as the policymaking body before they move on for, assumed adoption.
Councilmember Scheider and Councilmember Matthews?
So I would like to withdraw the motion that I made,
All right.
ideally to be made later, but so that we can have the conversation. Wait, did I make it or I made it, somebody else seconded it, right?
And yeah, Councilmember Fountain Johnson, you seconded. You don't have a issue about removal? Thank you very much. Councilmember Matthews?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Mayor. I think that's what I was saying. I was thinking that there was, that we were having motions and saying that I didn't want, making sure that we weren't making a decision on them tonight and thinking that whatever we came up with would be in an agenda packet so that the folks who we were engaging with could see what we were doing and have a chance to come here and speak to whatever motions there were. So that was my assumption.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Lamb?
Yeah, very good. So, would we like to see then just like a laundry list of changes, or how does this discussion want to go forward? Because I've got a list of things that I would love to discuss.
Might I interject?
Please.
For me, I usually let discuss. Councilmember Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos had I think, an excellent idea. Our study sessions are not that busy. We can move this to a study session, have a much more robust debate on this. We are quite a bit behind on our proposed calendar here. And so I would entertain that motion to a study session.
May I move that this conversation moves to the next study session?
I second that.
And Councilmember Scheider?
Right. So also another quick procedural thing. I just want to make sure that when we get to that study session, that we're allowed to make motions and agree on what kinds of changes we would like to make. And I've always felt like that was the purpose of a study session, but it hasn't kind of worked out that way, right? So we do need to be able to make motions and give staff firm, going forward.
I'm certainly getting a sense of the body that that's what our intent would be at that study session, to do exactly that. Councilmember Lant?
I guess it's a question mark that maybe the city manager can help us with. If we want to make changes to the motion that's been presented tonight, and that motion is to move this to another meeting for approval, for consideration of approval, what is the best opportunity for us to make changes to this so that staff can bring back what we want on that date?
It sounds to me like there's quite a robust discussion that people want to have. So a study session would be very helpful for that, because staff can then hear from council. I think at study sessions, we don't typically make final decisions, but certainly making a motion and providing guidance is very helpful to staff, because then we're able to hear from you, understand what a majority of the council wishes to see, and then we can bring back an ordinance that reflects that direction.
All right.
So there has been one motion that was kind of general, and I understood that to be to move this to a future, I would say the next study session, next available one, for discussion. And if I'm just interpreting that, for then forwarding to a regular business meeting for discussion and adoption. So the study session would be where this body would discuss it robustly consider amending and or however you want to redefine this, and then it would go to the final decision at a regular business meeting. Is that the intent I'm hearing?
The only problem I see with that is that if we change the intent of the whole ordinance, it just throws in the garbage all of the people that participated to help bring this about. So we're talking about, I don't know if we're talking about just adding amendments, or are we're talking about throwing out the baby with the bathwater?
Councilmember Scheider?
So I think I was about to speak to that a little bit. What I would appreciate is that if your suggestions, your motions, and you don't need to make them as clearly as motions, but it wouldn't hurt. If those could come out to council ahead of time and or go into the packet. But I think we need to know and think about it ahead of time.
Okay, and Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, that's like was on it before.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great. And I also don't know that we all know what we're going to, what we're going to want to do with something until we're in a conversation. So I think this is a perfect example that unless there's a pressing need to pass this right away, these amendments, that if we determine, hey, we actually want to open this up a bit more, we get to do that as a body. I mean, it's great that the process has happened, and sometimes things are administrative enough, it's no big deal, and they come in and we're like, yeah, whatever. But I think we should, so sure, I think if anybody knows what they want to do, it'd be great for everybody, staff and all of us, but let's not be chilled from saying, I mean, we've always known we were going to come back and re-examine this probably a number of times in the future, this function on the island. It's a delicate balance for a lot of reasons, including affordable housing. So does that make sense? I just want to be sure we give the process enough space for the process to do it right.
Councilmember Lamb, hopefully last word.
The last word. My only last word is that I really would love to see that the public is aware that this conversation is happening beyond our webpage. If there's any way to put it out there, even there's notifications that go out all the time, but it would be great if there was a way to send out notifications to residents within 300 feet of any short-term rental. I know we have those addresses on file, and if we got something out in the mail, that would be plenty of time for a business meeting in the future for folks to be aware and chime in and participate.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Are we fairly clear on the intent of the motion? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the chair votes aye, so it is 6-0. Okay, item number 7F. Oh boy. Consider approach to review the appeal of a business license denial and consider approaching a council subcommittee if this option is selected. City manager, please.
Thank you very much, council. This is an unusual item. In the time that I've been with the city, this is the first time that we have had a business license denial appealed. And so our city attorney is here to describe to you what it is you get to choose. Sneak peek, you get to choose to either hear this as a whole or appoint a subcommittee, but I will turn it over to our city attorney to provide you with a little more information.
All right. Thank you. Good evening, council. This is my first opportunity as city attorney, although it's only been a couple of months. So I'll launch right into it. So in some, the Bainbridge Island Municipal Code requires city council or committee thereof to hear all appeals of business license denials. And to prepare for the appeal hearing, staff requests that city council provide following guidance on 3 matters. The first is to determine whether the entire city council or committee thereof will hear this appeal. If a committee is desired, city council will then appoint a subcommittee of up to 3 council members to hear the appeal. Action item number 2 is set a tentative date and time for appeal. Proposed dates would be as early as last week of April or the first week of May. I've been in contact with a appellant as well as Mr. Pollen from my office will be representing planning department, and those dates roughly work for both of them. And then action number 3 is determine whether city council or a committee thereof wishes to have the assistance of legal counsel during the appeal hearing. This is a bit unusual because since my office will be representing the planning department in this particular appeal, it is advised that if council wishes to have legal counsel advise them during this hearing, that outside legal counsel be engaged. So for context, this matter involves a business license appeal of a business operating at a property located at 12990 Phelps Road Northeast. Involved parties and witnesses will likely include Kaplan Management LLC, Kashik LLC, Island Details Landscape and Branches Horticultural Academy, Diane Aversano, and Tim Zarichny, I think is how you pronounce it. It's Zaricnyj. One thing to note is that the appeal hearing would be quasi-judicial in nature, which means, of course, the appearance of fairness doctrine would apply. So the decision maker, whether it be full council or committee thereof, is not permitted to prejudge or have biases regarding the matter. In addition, communications between parties to the hearing and members of the decision-making body are prohibited outside the context of the hearing. So council members should not hear this appeal hearing if they have a demonstrated bias for or against any of the parties, any direct or indirect interest in the outcome of the proceeding, prejudge the issues prior to the hearings on the facts, had any ex parte contact with anyone other than staff prior to the hearing, and should not have any other conflict which the council member believes would prevent them from hearing the matter fairly and impartially. So I know it's a lot of information, just wanted to set the table for council, hoping to receive direction on those 3 matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, questions? Councilmember Pamela Johnson.
I just was thinking that for me, it sounds like a committee would be more expedient, I think, than the whole of us. And I'd like to volunteer for that, it being in the north end, on the north end. And I do agree that outside counsel would probably be best to have to go over these details.
Deputy Mayor Topos and Councilmember Matthews.
So whichever body we choose is the final decision maker. It's not a recommendation from a subcommittee to council.
That is correct. It would be the final decision, final administrative decision, correct? That it's not appealable to the hearing examiner or any other body within the city.
Oh, I guess what I meant is that they will be the decision makers. I mean, in other words, we can't have a subcommittee do the hearing and bring back a recommendation. It's going to be either heard as a council of the whole, and we're going to vote on a decision, or it's going to be the subcommittee and just 3 council members make this decision.
I think it would be best if it would just be just the subcommittee or just full council. The problem is if the subcommittee were to just merely a recommendation to full council wouldn't have the opportunity to hear the full cases, if you will. So I think it's an option A or an option B role.
Yeah, I was just say, I personally think this happens so rarely, and these are such big issues. This sort of thing is the kind of thing that comes up in different ways, and causes a lot of strife between landowners and neighbors and the city, that honestly, I think we should invest in all of us hearing it, to be frank. And if we don't, and it's a subcommittee, I'd like to be on it, but I know it's going to be a bit of a hassle, but I feel like there should be 7 voices for something like this.
Councilmember Matthews and Councilmember Lamb.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, City Attorney. After hearing your comments, I'd have to recuse myself. I have a personal relationship with them, and I've been a client, and I've spoken to them about this issue.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lamb.
Thank you. I support the full council hearing this as a group.
Okay. Well, council, you have a choice to make a motion here. I'll entertain whatever you want to hear.
I'm gonna make a motion.
Okay.
Which is in the packet somewhere. Hang on, I got it. I move to have full city council hear the appeal of business license denial.
Moved and seconded by Councilmember
Seconded.
Lamb. Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Pamela Johnson, seconded by Lamb, to have this full council hear the appeal. For discussion, call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Now I got a question after the fact that if the full
I'll-
council hears it, is it a public meeting?
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
it would be.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
Any other clarifying questions as the motion is moving forward? Yeah, Deputy Mayor.
Just want to make a comment. I mean, I'm kind of torn on it because I feel like on the one hand, I didn't feel bad for the parties that they may feel like it's public. On the other hand, it's giving them a real process and it's not, so depending on the outcome, I mean, back in some room with three of us versus out here and we're accountable. You know what I mean? So I realize it's probably, it could be embarrassing or something, but I feel like we're giving them a better process.
Thank you. And then, for vote, I just want to, publicly say thank you, Councilor Matthews, for your potential conflict of interest and proclaiming that early on. That's really appropriate, I believe. That's the way to go. Okay, so all in favor of the motion, please. We already voted, didn't we? Yeah, okay, okay.
Okay, with that guidance, we will reach out to work on the scheduling.
And I vote aye too, yes. All right, very
Excuse
good.
me.
No worries. Okay, let's move. Next item. Oh, this is fun. This is a designated council member to serve on the selection jury of the 2026, 2027 something new public art. What?
I don't think we individually vote. We didn't need to vote on whether we need independent counsel. Am I wrong?
Oh.
We just.
Yes,
did all of it.
that was not addressed.
That was not an emotion, no. Okay, so let's move on. Go ahead.
It was not part of the original motion, but I move that we also hear it as a council and
Good point.
request the outside legal advice
Yeah.
to be in the meeting with us.
Represent the
That
city.
you,
Right.
yeah, recuse yourself and get someone else to
And-
help us.
I will second and have a question.
Yeah.
Will we then be able to actually ask questions of council, of this council? In executive session or something, or are we gonna, how do we actually get advice as a body?
That's an excellent question. I mean, obviously, you can ask questions of outside legal counsel, TBD. But if it is going to be an attorney-client privileged communication, it should have to be in an executive session. at that
But
point,
that's
yeah.
allowed. We could have a preparatory conversation with them to get
Yeah.
legal advice before
Correct.
we go into this thing.
Correct.
Okay.
So the motion before by Councilmember Fowler Johnson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Itopoulos, was to seek outside counsel for our advice on this hearing. Is that correct? Right. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And you abstained. Okay, so it was 4 yay and the chair votes aye. That's 5 and with 1 abstention. So thank you. All right, now let's go to some fun stuff. Item 7G, designate 1 council member to serve on a selecting jury for the 2026, 2027 something new public art rotation and interim city manager.
Thank you, council, and I will note that the city attorney notes that his item is also fun. So this. Thank you. It's almost 9 o'clock. This item is a request to you to select one of your members to serve on a jury for public art, which will be displayed in the downtown Winslow area. This is the 9th rotation of the Something New art rotation. There's 5 sculptures downtown. Arts and Humanities Bainbridge and the Public Art Committee work on putting this together. They have solicited or sent out the call for art and are looking for 1 council member to serve on the jury that will do the selection and ultimate recommendation to the council. Thank
I'll
you.
just say I've served on this and it's really one of the most fun things you can do on this council. It really is. So would anybody like to be part of the selection panel? Don't, you don't believe me that it's fun. Is that what you're saying?
I thought that all the lights would be blazing, so I was going to hold back. But given that I don't see a lot of lights, sure, I'd love to
Okay.
do it.
So, do we need a motion then, or we just recommend that we?
Is there anybody else that wants to fight
Okay.
for it?
We have the motion?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
I move to appoint Councilmember Snyder to represent the city of Bainbridge Island on the selection jury for the 2026, 2027 something new public art rotation.
Second,
Moved by Councilmember Fowler Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Lant, that we will allow Leslie Scheider really the time of her life on another outside committee. All in favor of this appointment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Vote is 5-0. Chair votes aye, 6-0. So you're going to enjoy it, Leslie, really well. All right. Item 8A, receive a recommendation from the Winslow Sub-Area Plan Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee for next steps related to proposed changes to the comprehensive plan guiding principles. Interim Manager.
I believe this is intended for the council to receive a briefing from the steering committee related to topics covered in recent meetings.
I'll turn it over to steering committee members. Wish to add anything to the discussion?
I do feel bad that we don't have a copy of the work to date here, but it is, if you're interested and if the public's interested, it is so far attached to yesterday's steering committee, so it's all in there. And so, I'm sorry because I was distracted and I hope that I'm going to make sense. But basically, I think what you guys need to know is where we are on that. We had a little, so we've heard things from the public. I know you guys probably haven't all. I think you might have watched the steering committee, but the rest of you probably didn't. Councilmember Schneider was, of course, there. And I think that we would agree. I think that our representative from Race Equity who was there, I think that the steering committee agreed that we have a plan for going forward with a version so far that I actually incorporated. And I'm going to be actually reaching out to Councilmember Schneider is going, I'm going to plead late hour two, is going to reach out to me with some of it, trying to see if we can incorporate some of her elements from the version that she had done. But the bottom line is the kind of the straight trajectory is we have a version of guiding principles that have been updated to incorporate just about everything that REACT proposed, while also keeping it as a red line document of the original guiding principles so that the public and everybody can really see what came out, what went in, and we're working from that. Made me feel really good as someone who was originally resistant to opening this up right now. And we have said that as a steering committee, we're going to have it go out to all of our committees for their comment. Those comments will go along with with that draft and including any updates that we incorporate with Councilmember Schneider to the Planning Commission to marry up with the comp plan on the 23rd for that hearing we've been talking about. And so it would become part of the draft with their obvious, any recommendations, I guess, changes that they would make, and that's where we would ultimately receive it. Is that your understanding, Councilmember Schneider? Schneider.
And I just want to say, everybody so far has just appreciated the work that Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos did in the very careful, here's where this came from, here's where this went, and it's just awesome work. It just provides a lot of confidence in the whole process.
And I think I want to make a comment here, if that's okay. Sorry,
Please.
on myself, sorry, that I've said at the steering committee, but again, because especially in light of how we had some conversation up here, we've had comments. I think everybody knows what an advocate I am for about restraining growth and all of these other issues and environmental protection, and that sometimes have become at this point feeling in our community like we've got two warring sides or something, like it's all this or it's all that, like it's either pro-human, pro-equity, et cetera, or it's pro-growth, anti-growth, pro-environment, and somehow there's no way that we as a community can do all of the above. And I really feel like it just meant a lot to me to be, I guess, probably considered part of this other side over here as I'm a side, to be able to see how these are so compatible. And it's basically just by pulling these together, we're simply doing what our comprehensive plan and the incorporation of the city, I think from the beginning that we've been trying to do here, which is balance all of the needs, the human and the environment, et cetera, et cetera. That's why we have all these great extra elements and so forth. We are a diverse, rich community with lots of things happening, and we can have all together. It's not us versus them or.
I also wanted to add another benefit that hadn't occurred to me, which is initially I really resisted having the sub bullets under each of the guiding principles because it's just like, wait a minute, this is just getting too detailed. But then it was pointed out in the meeting, and I think this just evolved in the course of the meeting, right? That these sub bullets were in fact redundant with a lot of what was already in the various parts of the comprehensive plan. And so I don't know if we can make it happen exactly, but I really like the idea that, yeah, they are redundant. You know, that's because the comp plan as a whole is reflecting back the guiding principles. And so if we can make it easily readable enough to actually share, okay, this, 3.1 policy statement actually lives over here, and you can go find it, and that policy statement is here because it supports and clarifies the guiding principle. So in that way, it almost makes it, this kind of hyperlinked guide to where we are showing the importance of our guiding principles in the work that we're doing.
Councilmember Marilyn Johnson, then Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you both for sharing this. Deputy Mayor, you just know you want to come over to the other side.
Excellent. And Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to reiterate that I had a chance to watch the steering committee meeting yesterday, and I really was blown away. I mean, I was watching it just thinking how well this ended up and what good work was done. I hope there's a way to reflect Councilmember Schneider's work somehow so that we see it, but I understood that it would be too confusing to have both items, especially because yours is the red line version. I really, really like that. I think that's important for the community. I don't know if we're stressing that enough, that the final product you're going to see is going to have what was changed and what's new, so you can really clearly see it. And so I just think that I want to echo my colleagues with the care that you took to do this for the community, as well as Councilmember Schneider. So thank you for your.
Further comments? Just want to say I just love hearing the camaraderie as well as the respect, and I'm sure you contributed as well, Leslie, but
Everybody liked mine too.
very good. All right. So let's move on to the second part. This is Councilmember Land, request for discussion and approval on city advisory work plans for a future council meeting. Councilmember Land.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, interim city manager, for making sure this was included in here. Also, mayor and deputy mayor. As a new council member, I do not have the background that the rest of you do in the priorities that you've set in previous years, and what may have changed in those priorities just over that amount of time. I'm having just doubts about some of the conversations that are coming in front of us that without knowing your priorities and knowing how we would like to approach conversations about things we probably initially disagree on, but we want to find some common ground on, maybe building some more relationships so that we can get there. I think is incredibly important. I understand that we're on this time frame that we don't have a city manager. We're looking for a new planning director. We've got, 2 new council members, a new city attorney. There's a lot of moving parts here, but I think it's extremely important that we figure out a way to come together and, I think it's important that we as a group have a discussion about if we want to, if we're able to, if there's an appetite here to do this before the end of the summer even. So that is my request for this discussion to come forward. So I'm not sure if this is a request to put it on to a study session type discussion, or if how you would like to proceed.
Thank you, Councilmember Land. Council comments. Councilman Schneider.
I certainly don't, I certainly approve of the intent of this. I guess I'm just kind of concerned about the timing, the implications of it. And I guess I believe that we can anytime go back and review work plans and decide that we want to make specific changes. And, but in the meantime, keeping yes, so I guess I'm not in favor of it because of the timing, because of how it postpones the work that our advisory councils do. But I certainly support reviewing them in the course of our retreats and whatnot and making changes.
It's then Deputy Mayor, and then Councilmember Hunter Johnson.
I'm a little torn here because with a couple of things. First of all, we're not supposed to be discussing the substance of it right now, right? And on the other end, and I want to be deferential, honestly, to council members to bring things forward for discussion, like as a matter of course, unless I'm just think, no way, I'm offended or something. So I guess I want to give feedback that I would vote to move this forward for discussion. I've kind of tipped my hand in our last meeting about where I am on that, which is a timing issue. I fully embrace this in a different timeline along with, council retreat, et cetera. So I would want to move it forward if Councilmember Land wants to do that at the end of comments. But I also don't want to be promising any sort of action in that direction. Does that make sense?
Councilmember Johnson, then Councilmember Lamb.
Yeah, I also, want to support the idea of moving it forward, but I just don't support this at all. And so I don't, I don't know that, it's not a timing issue for me. It's more of I think some of these issues that we talk about, when I was a new council person, it was easier for me to talk to two other council members to find out what had happened on this and why we landed where we were. Instead of bringing it all to everybody, because you're not going to be up to speed on everything. And that's why we have that rule. You can talk to two council people about it, and maybe some of the questions will be answered there. But the idea of holding up the work plans, I can see us talking about it, but letting the work plans go through. I can't support stopping the work plans.
Councilmember Land and Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, and I don't mean to stop the work plans. I understand that this train is going down the tracks and we're, the work of the city is going on. I just really want to, I guess, again, acknowledge that we just set ward meetings. We haven't talked to constituents yet about what their thoughts are. We haven't met as a group, and there's lots of transition happening. And it's less about the individual work, like a topic specifically. It's more about the, as a group, as a body, what do we envision, how we're going to work together, kind of a thing. And I don't necessarily intend that this has to be a formal retreat type of setting, even though I understand it would be a quorum and it would be a public thing. I get that. But entertaining some kind of even like a mini retreat, something like that, that could be done again once the city manager comes on board. But I just really want to acknowledge that we are running full steam ahead without knowing what is most important in 2026 to this council, including new council members.
Deputy Mayor, then Councilmember Atkins.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't, like, a moment ago I was saying, in deference to Councilmember Land, I would say, let's move it forward. And maybe what I feel like more saying is, let's actually do what we're doing, which talk about it a little bit more, right? Which we typically wouldn't do, but I want to appreciate where you're coming from. And so I guess I want to try one more time, like from a process perspective, like my perspective is these committees are going along, just like staff is going along with their own work plans, and they're just going along and they have ideas, and members who've been here for a while, and they have actually their own ideas about how they can be helpful, what they want to do with their missions. And so they're flowing along, and the council changes and city manager goes at an inopportune time, and we don't have a new city manager. And I don't think we interrupt the flow of either this, of what the staff is just kind of doing, what what these committees are doing, unless we thought we could identify there's like funding issue, like that, you know, like one item, like, whoa, we were really getting the sense that this council isn't for some big project that's about to start, and it's $1 million of general fund money. We better, otherwise, we've got to get our ducks in a row and really figure out and where in the flow we kind of will have our course correction if we're changing our policy positions of the body. Otherwise, I don't know how it works, because we would have to either stop the committees and say, wait till we're done, and they're not, by and large, they're not spending our money. Yes, they always take staff time, but that's just kind of like a cost of business that's going on. And because when they bring us their work plan, we get an opportunity, if any of us feel like, why are we doing that particular thing? That's when we can talk about that. Say, that's for some reason I'm uncomfortable, or I think that that's a waste of I don't know. But that happens, and we can come back and tell them to shift gears if we think we could use their talents better once we do have a conversation. So I may be repeating what I already said the last meeting, but that's why I would just have a hard time having this as a conversation and review of work plans until we have a chance to have a city manager on board.
Councilmember Matthews and Councilmember Conlon Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. So I think from what I'm hearing from Councilmember Lant is she agrees that the work plans are no longer part of this conversation. Is that right?
Wait,
So not that, so that work plans are no longer part of this conversation, and so that we all share the goal of wanting to have a retreat at some point. So I don't see, I'm trying to be, but I don't see the need to have this be a meeting. We all want to have a retreat, mini retreat, whatever it is, a time to gather, talk about goals and priorities. I think that needs to be separated completely from the work plan discussion, and limiting or stopping any sort of work on that. I think we get a chance to discuss work plans when we get the work, we see the work plans, we hear from the committees, we have a chance to then discuss the work plans. I don't think we've adopted the work plans yet. So we still have time to think about some things and then we'll adopt them. I don't think we need to keep this going anymore. And I don't want our committees to think that, to take this as us not endorsing them, these are volunteers who work very hard and do a lot of work. And I really would like to leave them with the positive image of the work that was done yesterday, as well as our community in the steering committee. And there's been, some difficult community conversations around different things like that. And so I feel like this is taking those conversations in the wrong direction, as opposed to the really positive work that the steering committee and REACT did together yesterday. And that's what I'd like to focus.
Councilmember Conlon Johnson.
Yeah, I think this is like the perfect time to remember where we are. We're March of 2026. And it's a good time because we're going to have these board meetings, and hopefully we'll get a new city manager. And at that time, we can look at our priorities and see if that's where we are. So we don't want to jump the gun with that. We need to have those board meetings now so we can know what people are saying they have different priorities than what we've been doing. But that conversation will come organically when we all get together and talk about it. And we can't kind of jump ahead of that and try to do it ahead of time. But we're at the perfect spot. We will have enough information when a retreat is scheduled that we should have enough information to do that. And then at that time, we can, incorporate what we've had from the board meetings and how we all feel, that our constituents are talking to us. It's not that we don't want to talk about it. It's just, I don't think we don't have enough yet. If that's what you're saying about the priorities. Work plan for me.
Councilmember Lant.
We don't just do the last word on this again. It's that kind of night. Yeah, I do promise. So thank you. This was a good discussion. This was really for the public to hear as well, just to acknowledge that we haven't gotten together. If there is confusion or if there's questions certainly on the new council members' parts, part of this is because we are midstream without the tools in place that typically would have been in place. And I just want to make that very clear that this has been a conversation in my mind that might be concerning to the public. And I just wanted to put it out there. And I appreciate the discussion.
Thank you.
I don't agree that we're dealing because we don't have tools. We're like in the water without a paddle. We have priorities. We know what we're doing. You want to change those. You want to talk about new priorities. So this is just not the time yet.
Yeah.
We know what.
Just a fun thought. Thanks for that discussion. Just I would add that, and I get your frustration because, I remember the first year you had to, what was the metaphor? You said you didn't have a paddle in the boat. I just felt like I didn't even have a boat. Hold on, where's this going? But one thing I do want to stress is that we go through a lot of process and we are continuing to appoint people to committees. We're hoping to get some other committees going and people apply. And part of that is we are asking citizens to advise us, their advisory to us. And we're asking them to say, well, what do you feel, since you're an expert on utilities or whatever it might be? What do you feel we should be looking at or working at? And so and that's what I hope that the citizens will be providing for us. And that's what I believe. So that was a good discussion. Appreciate your thoughts. And finally, council announcements. I'll just do it this way. And then I'll put you on the spot list. Even this can move down the lane. And if anybody has a thing to add, would you add any council announcements? So let's start with Councilor Shiver and work our way down the dais. Pass.
Yes, Utility Advisory Mission met and KPUD was there to discuss the South Bainbridge water situation and what the next 6 months, or at least certainly to the first quarter of next year, is going to look like. It's very informative. I'm sure more will be coming out from the city about that. But it was a good discussion and sobering discussion.
Johnson.
Planning Commission met last week, meeting on Wednesday, to keep doing their work on the elements. There's another meeting on the 26th, which is Thursday. I really encourage some of you to listen to the meetings while you're, making dinner or, just go on the Zoom recording, because they're really, really informative. And I'm sure this Thursday, after some of the discussion we had this evening, will be informative as well. The Puget Sound Regional Council's Growth Management Policy Board met last Thursday, and one of the last 3 remaining plans to yet be turned in, including us. Well, there were 3, including us. The city of Seattle turned in their plan, and so it was very interesting to look at if there's any out, so folks can look at them if anyone's interested. There was a really cool event on to speak an event in November at St. Cecilia's for Captain Tim Bunke. He was getting a house built for him through home or the home went from permitting in 8 months. This home is built on Baker Hill, which is almost unbelievable. So many of us were there Saturday. The police department was there, Councilman Lance there, fire department, and many others doing landscaping. And then the key ceremony is in May. So this was one of the record I've never seen. So it was great to see, and really great to see even him and his family be able to move in a home. They do lots for the community. And that's it.
So it's their plan for me can't get things done. So that's good.
Yeah, I spotted her.
Deputy Mayor, I don't say anything. So this morning was the Housing Kitsap Authority meeting. I chair that, and the audit came through. The auditor for this housing authority does almost 90 other housing authorities throughout the nation, and they said we're maybe the best. The audit's clean. Most housing authorities have between a 3 to 4 month reserve. Kitsap Housing has a year. These are budgeted items. This is for capital that's going to be ongoing and coming. And there went through a lot of issues in the last 10 years. I mean, to sell property just to pay staff. to where it is now. It's a really robust, but there's a good warning sign. And I think it's also a good and instructive thing for us in that we follow the headlines. And we're seeing, I heard on NPR today compared to the gas crisis when I was growing up and after the Gulf War, this is on an order of 10 times greater. I can't remember what it was, they said 10 billion or the number of oil that is out already, it's already surpassed all of those events together. So this unknown is so crazy. And so I'm just saying, we haven't converted our fleets fast enough to electric fuel concerns and all the rest. Fertilizer is another that is hitting. And that the housing authority, we have a lot of capital projects and we're really robust now, but what are the materials going to be? And all the assorted costs. This is the unknown is really frightening. But it is something that we really have to be cautious of. And I also want to thank Deputy Mayor for capably chairing the meeting while I was recuperating from the beautiful St. Michael's room. Just got to share that happened. But before I came, I made the I was not going to do it that there was no way I was going to hold a phone with a but the window is down and you can't see that beautiful view. But I did a push on little out that little table. And I had to put people around it with all the I don't know. Like, back. Yeah. But hey, it's all I can do to hold that together because just taking it to the restroom was a trip. Setting all that up and doing that, so I came off okay. I didn't watch the rest of the game. Thank, thank all of you for putting up with me. Last, it's good to be back. And that, yeah, but really, really, yeah, there. Like, the order, right. Thank you. Okay.